Welcome to Rider Forge. This is Dr. Will speaking. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. If you want to help support what I'm doing, consider picking up a slick Rider Forge t-shirt or sticker. The link is in the description. In this video, we're going to cover the parts on and around the rear wheel of a street motorcycle, including the brakes and suspension. I'm assuming you don't have any previous experience or knowledge. Please see my other videos if you'd like some additional background. Now, without further delay, let's get into it. We're taking a look now at the rear of the motorcycle. This includes the rear wheel, the brakes, the suspension, and a few other connecting sections. The reason I have this weird looking mirror image here, this is actually not a mirror image, it's actually the left. This is the left side. This is the right side, okay? Just as a point of reference, so we know what we're looking at. We can see on the left side of the motorcycle, let's just start identifying parts. This is the tire. The wheel, you could technically call the tire and the rim a wheel, but this metal part in the middle, that's the rim. This is the swing arm. This is what actually connects the rear wheel to the rest of the motorcycle, the center of the frame. And this is what that rear whole section of the bike is pivoting up and down on. So this can actually move up and down, and we can see that the rear shock in this case is attached to the frame up here, and it's attached to the swing arm down here. And this whole system can move up and down. We're going to talk a little bit more about the drivetrain in the engine video, but the chain connects the rear wheel to the engine. That's how we drive this rear wheel. This is the chain guard. This keeps rocks and debris and oil and grime from shooting up and going all over the motorcycle. It also protects you, protects your fingers, protects your feet, keeps you away from that area. It's a dangerous area. This metal disc in the middle, this is the rear sprocket. Not this part I'm circling here, but this stuff right here. This is the rear sprocket. This is what actually grabs onto the chain. It's just got a bunch of teeth. It's like a gear. Just to point this out, this is the rear passenger peg. Goes flip up and down. That way, if you have a passenger, you can flip them down. If you don't, you can flip them up. Going over to the right-hand side of the bike, we are going to look at the braking system. This is a disc brake setup. So this is obviously the disc. This is a rotor, and this is a caliper. This line, this is a brake fluid line. It goes all the way up here, and this is the brake fluid reservoir. This is what holds the brake fluid. This is the chain adjuster. This adjusts actually the alignment of the rear wheel. So you can set the alignment of the rear wheel. The front wheel is fixed, but the rear wheel you actually have some adjustment. So when you're adjusting the slack in the chain, if the chain were to be too loose or too tight, you can actually change how far in or out that rear wheel is, and that adjusts not only the tension in the chain, but actually the alignment of the wheel if you were to look at it from the left and right. We're not going to go into anything advanced with suspension. We just want to be aware the suspension system goes up and down. It's connected to the swing arm, which is connected to the wheel. Great. You have a fender. This just blocks you from dirt, debris, rocks, mud, water, that kind of thing. This is just a rear turn signal, rear brake. Very easy. Let's move on to the next slide. We're going to talk about that chain goes about around here, goes all the way around just to see where things connect. We're going to talk about the kickstand real quick. This bike has what looks like two kickstands. There's a side stand, which I think here it's black, so it's a little hard to see. That's the side stand. And then you actually have a second kickstand, if you want to call it that, called a center stand, which is right here. This is why this is so big. The center stand keeps the bike in a vertical position, like perfectly vertical, like it's not tilted to the side. The side stand is going to allow the bike to lean over to the side at a 10 or 15 degree angle, whatever it happens to be. The center stand is used more for maintenance. We can see, just to be complete with the rear, this is the rear brake lever. It's got a cable system that goes up here that's going to activate the brake light. There's some sort of mechanism here, brake light switch. That might be it. It's hard to tell on this bike, but there's a brake light switch. This looks like the brake fluid reservoir. This looks like it might be the master cylinder. So you push on the lever, and there's a system that's going to push on the piston, which is going to squeeze the oil or the brake fluid in here, which goes down the line and then squeezes the pistons in the caliper, which squeezes the rotor, which slows you down. And that's basically converting kinetic energy into heat energy. And it's really the interface of the tire and the pavement that slows you down. You can only stop as good as your tires are. So tires are really important in the braking system. Most people think of just brakes, but actually the tires are critically important in coming to a stop as well. I just want to point out that some motorcycles, it's really common to still see a brake drum setup in the rear. Let's just look at that. This whole thing is called a drum, clearly from the shape. It really kind of looks like a drum. And what happens is this big rod is attached to that rear brake lever. And when you push on the brake lever, it pushes on the rod, which then pushes on this arm, which then actually spreads out what's called the brake shoes. They're not called brake pads, they're called brake shoes in a drum brake. And I'm going to draw here, they sort of look like this inside the drum. And when you push on this lever, it actually pushes them out, and then it makes contact with the drum, and that's what slows you down. The way that you would adjust or look at these is that there's often a spy hole in here with a cover that you can remove. The other thing that you can do is sometimes there are adjustment marks on the side to show how far this lever is going in and out. I will say that brake shoes tend to last a really long time unless there's something wrong with them and they're dragging. That system is pretty robust and they do last for a long time. Let's go back and look at what are my responsibilities as a rider to be safe, responsible, competent, etc. We have jobs over here which we can send to the dealer or a mechanic. All right, we don't have to do these things. We can if we want to save money or we're mechanically inclined, but these are optional. And then you have minimum responsibilities that you must do on a day-to-day basis or a ride-to-ride basis. I've bolded and underlined things that you have to do that are more active. The rest of these items here on the list are more passive items that you just need to observe and be aware of. So we can see that tire pressure is something you have to actively do and check. Chain lubrication is a job that you need to actively perform. The rest of these items are really just passive observation. When we're looking at our tires, we are really concerned on a daily basis with looking for cracks, nails, anything that could be in the surface of the tire, but we're also really concerned with tread depth. So this little bump here is the minimum tread depth indicator. When the main meaty section of the tire gets worn down and it's equal in depth to that bump, then your tire's ready to replace. And again, these tires look good. They look in good shape. I don't see any bumps or cracks, no nails, no problems. Okay. Just be aware that the side of the tire has tire size and speed rating information. You don't need to memorize what all of these different things mean in the numbers. What you just need to be aware of is that there's a number on the side of the tire, and if you want to replace a tire, you just go and find it. You can just go out into your garage and write the number down, and that's how you're going to shop for a tire. You're going to need these numbers to buy a tire. What you do need to be aware of, especially if you are purchasing a used motorcycle, is the date of production of the tire. That is, how old is the tire? We have the week of the year and the 2-year date digit that the tire was produced. So this was produced in the year 2016 on the 38th week. So that's really important to know. You don't really need to memorize the week thing. I don't really care so much about that. I care about the year it was produced in. As a general rule, I don't use tires more than 4 years old on any motorcycle. That's my personal preference. Tires break down, they get hard over time, they don't grip as well, especially in the wet. It's not something you want to screw around with. This is something when you're buying a used bike, the seller is probably not going to want to negotiate with you about. Very few people understand this about tires, so they're not going to want to cut down the price because they're going to think the tires are perfectly fine. And maybe that's okay if you're grandma and you only ride on sunny days doing 10 miles per hour and you never push the bike beyond the minimum. You could probably get away with it, but I would just replace it. It's not worth it. The other thing we're going to look at here is if you're wondering, how do I know what kind of air pressure to put in my tires? This sticker gives us all the information that we could ever want. That sticker would be found right here on every bike. Now, hopefully people didn't peel it all off your bike, or you bought one new. It's definitely going to come with one right there. But for promotional purposes, they take all the stickers off the bike just so it looks nicer. Now, jumping back to the chain, you should just be looking at the chain to determine if it looks really loose or too tight. Too tight is bad, too loose is bad. You can see in the picture how this is being measured. You're measuring the distance the chain travels up and down from the center section of the chain. Another way to do this is to pull on the chain on the back of the sprocket, and you can see how this guy here is able to lift it off the sprocket. This should be a really tight point, so this should not happen normally. See how the chain is kinked like that? That also means that this chain is worn out. If we're looking at the sprockets, that's those gears that drive the chain. There's one in the front and one in the rear. We can see a brand new sprocket here on the left. You can see the teeth look great, very nice and smooth. We can see that this sprocket is at the end of its life. It looks very worn. You can tell through the shape of the teeth and how worn it looks. And then you can see the actual shark fin of this one here. This is way past due. If we're looking at brake pads, what we want to look at is we're going to come at it with a flashlight. You're going to need it. The rotor is going to be taking up all this space here. When that brake pad wears down, to where those grooves are gone, that brake pad is now past its life. And with that, we will end this video. Please take a look at the entire beginner playlist if you'd like to learn more. The best way to stay informed and find out when I release new videos is by subscribing and hitting the bell notification. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to help support what I'm doing, consider picking up some merch. I really appreciate it and the feedback. Do you have a specific question or request? Let me know about it in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer it. You never know, I might even make a video on it. Until next time, this is Dr. Will with Rider Forge. I'm out of here.